and they keep coming in. There's probably 500 of them right now. And for Fort Snelling, as an example, each of the historic sites and state parks are doing special programs throughout the summer. And Fort Snelling and some of the other state parks are doing geocaching, so families can get out, borrow one of the geocaching, I call them machines still, but I guess they're little handheld devices where they can go on literally a treasure hunt through that park and learn about the different aspects of the park, and then find a little cache. And included in that is one of the sesquicentennial medallions.
Oh,
so things like that are happening throughout the year. The Minnesota Historical Society at their website is particularly looking at some of the historic sites, and that website is www.mnhs.org.
Okay.
And then the state parks are doing 150 new programs based on the sesquicentennial throughout the summer, so you can go to their website. And one of the things I think that's really important for kids to see, especially in the summer when they're not in school, is that there's going to be a weekly quiz on Minnesota history on the DNR website.
Okay.
So,
well, DNR always does a really good job of getting kids engaged, you know, with just the natural beauty of our state, but also, you know, this will be really fun to connect the history of our state.
Exactly, and there are parks where there are historic sites and vice versa, and so they have come together to coordinate their efforts and have special events, and you can see all that on the website.
And you know, I just got to thinking about this too, but it's really fun this year. We also have the creation of a new state park at the 150th
Lake Vermilion, right? It's a great legacy.
So what a great legacy to say that on the 150th anniversary or birthday of our state, we also, you know, had the vision to now create and preserve some more land for our posterity. So that's really, really great. So now you also have some. I'll show this. This is
our wonderful brochure. It's called "Experience a Minnesota Sesquicentennial Journey," and you can get this from our office. All of it's on the website too. But we like this so much because it actually has a painting of the biomes that you mentioned. And it takes people through all the events that have happened and will happen, including we had over 100 grants that were given out, and some of these are mentioned there. People can go to those programs again by our website. You can see those events. Things like the Traces project in St. Paul is going to take a bus tour of all the German POW sites in Minnesota to help people learn about that part of our history, you know, slightly more recent than 150 years ago. And the 150 years of African American artists in Minnesota, there's a display about that. So there's so much, and we wanted people to actually take a pledge to learn about their state's history, to get engaged about looking at our future, and you can take that pledge online and then use this brochure.
So what does the pledge say? Let's
say the pledge, because we'd love for all the kids out there to, and the pledge is that I will pledge to learn from the state's past, reflect on lessons from both its success and failings, and get engaged in planning for Minnesota's future well-being. And I think, you know, being the Department of Education, this is a great place to send that message out. You know, particularly when you mention the robotics at the festival, we really want to push some of the sesquicentennial themes: education, innovation, health and wellness, our arts and culture, and then the great outdoors that we have. And so that's part of learning about Minnesota too. And we just encourage people to take this journey with all of us this year.
Well, and then also you have a journal too.
We do.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is a great thing that got started on May 11th, 2007. So just over a year ago, we worked with some of the folks in your shop, the regional library system, to have the very first banner that was made for the sesquicentennial go out to the libraries, and they rotated it every 2 or 3 weeks, and then we got a couple more banners, and along with the banner is a journal, a leather-bound journal, very nice, that people could write in their hopes and dreams, what they love about Minnesota. And the one that I have here, you might want to show, was finished up at Gilbert Public Library in northeastern Minnesota. And there's a picture of the kids, the second grade class there, that went to the library, signed the journal, and they loved the banner. It was kind of like our ambassador out there before we had a whole lot of people working with us. And so,
take a shot of that.
Yeah, there's the kids from the Gilbert class. You know, we've had such great experience with...
And Jane, let me read this.
Yes,
one.
please.
It says, Minnesota, what place could possibly compete? North woods, blue water, plenty of it, red earth and pines. It felt like home to my immigrating Norske forefathers, tough, resilient folks who eked out a living in gratitude. Now we are diverse and enriched by all cultures who seek a beautiful place to live. That's really neat.
Yeah,
to
these
have
are
this
so
preserved.
inspiring. Yeah, we have about 4 or 5 of these from around the state. They're all going to go to the Historical Society. They're a great record of this year. So,
that's wonderful to have the thoughts of Minnesotans right now and children thinking about their experience.
Grandparents, everybody. Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's a wonderful, it's kind of a very uniting kind of experience, and it makes you really proud of your history. And of course, I've been reading a lot of history books lately. Started reading 1776 and John Adams, and you go back to the founding of our country, and then you see how state after state came into this great union, and all of the different things that had to be decided by people in the beginning, even the selection of our capital, and
and our Constitution, which is a story in itself. Just all the disagreements about that, but we've stayed together, and as you say, it's all of our home. That's what unites us for this sesquicentennial.
And it is, it's sincerely a beautiful home.
Very beautiful.
When you look at the diversity of our state and how large it is. I was recently in Rhode Island, which is about 38 miles by 43 miles.
A postage stamp, right?
And now, we've got our wonderful, wonderful state. Also, we have the postage stamp, too. We're going to talk about that, too.
Yeah, you're going to talk about that later, I think. And that was a great, that only happens every 50 years, so it's a great honor to get that.
Well, we're going to hear about that in our next segment. Well, Jane, thank you, first of all. As we were talking early, this has been your gift to the state, too. This has not been a highly paid position for you, but it has been a gift because of your love for Minnesota, and I want to personally thank you for that. I don't think people understand how much of a job this has been and the kind of devotion that you've given to Minnesota. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for caring so much about Minnesota.
Thanks.
Well, that's all the time we have for our first segment. I want to thank Jane again for being on our show today. We are going to be coming back real quickly with our next guest. Thank you. Welcome back to K-12 TV. In this segment, we'll continue our discussion about the Minnesota Sesquicentennial with State Representative Sandra Erickson. And we'll also find out about education-related legislation that was passed this last 2008 legislative session. Welcome to K-12 TV, Sandra.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. It's great here to be with you, my former colleague.
Yes, it is fun to be with you. I miss being in the legislature, and I miss being with friends such as yourself.
Well, we're glad you're where you are.
Oh, well, thanks. I want to let the audience know a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background, how many years you've lived in the legislature, or not lived, well,
I lived there too.
Feel like you live there, that you've served, and some of where you represent.
Well, I'm native to Minnesota, born in Ada, and grew up in North Dakota, graduated from Concordia College, and went off to teach at Princeton High School. And there I stayed for a little over 30 years as a high school English teacher, a few years in the junior high school as well. Our son was raised and graduated from Princeton High School. And then in 1997, my predecessor, former Representative Leroy Kopendreyer, twisted my arm to run for the legislature so that he could accept a position from former Governor Arne Carlson to serve on the Public Utilities Commission. So I have served in the legislature now for 11 years.
That's wonderful. And it's been just a wonderful experience, I know. And then as a teacher, I think what I'm really interested in is how you got involved with the Sesquicentennial Commission and why you enjoyed doing it, what was your interest, and then kind of what was your role and service in this commission.
Well, I was appointed by former Speaker Steve Swigum to the Sesquicentennial Commission, and I think he thought of my involvement in two ways. Number one, I was an educator, and so he thought that I could probably contribute through the educational arena.